All right, everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of the Climbing Majority Podcast. Today, we are sitting down with the founder of openbeta.io, Viet. Viet, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, how's it going, man? How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, I've been working a lot. Haven't got a chance to go climbing this week, but looking forward to it. Gonna happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we were just talking, before we were on, recording here, that you're currently in Vegas, which is pretty cool. So, what are you doing there? What's going on?
Yeah, so I actually came down from Portland in October to meet up with some of the friends. Actually, we met through open beta, so which we're going to talk more about in this podcast. So some of the volunteers, we decided to get together to climb and just to hang out, to meet up in person, because we've been doing everything online and chat, and it's kind of nice to connect with those folks.
How many people would you say are currently working on open beta as a project?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a labor of love project. So people who usually they found the project by reading about us online, and they tend to be tech savvy folks. So they would normally, if you're a computer programmer, there's a website called GitHub. It's a collaboration website where you can look at the project, and then you can pick on a task. And that's what most people found us, and they usually pick on a simple task to start. And then there are also a few people who stay and work on multiple tasks and take on some bigger, harder challenge.
And you're referencing these tasks within open beta, right? Not
right.
GitHub?
So it's okay. The coding, it's the ticket. It's just like similar to work where your team lead, your boss would give you a task. Hey, add a button to this website. So currently we have about 3 or 4 active contributors, and then we have every 2 weeks someone would drop in and, hey, I want to pick up an issue. Assign it to me.
And so this is just like free forum. Anybody can collaborate or get in contact with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. So we are a 100% open source project. By open source, it means the source code, the recipe behind the website is all out in the open. And anyone can look at it, and then it's very similar to we apply the workflow, the best practices that if someone who has worked in a small software company or a big software company, you would be very familiar with this process. You look at a ticket and you kind of know what to do, and you can ask questions, and then you make a proposal, and then we can look at the proposal, and then we can see if it's acceptable, or we can leave feedback, and then we accept that proposal, and that becomes part of the software.
Cool. Yeah, no, I that makes sense for sure. I think that a question I have is, so to someone who is not tech savvy, to someone who not a coder or a programmer, how does open beta benefit them? Like, to me, myself included, Max included, we're avid users of Mountain Project. We enjoy the flow of sharing our information, our pictures and stuff to a collective site for everybody to collaborate and share information. So for people like us, and for maybe some people in our audience who, might not see the benefits of, having open source code and access to information to build programs on, how would this benefit and how would this relate to people like us?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. When you reference, you talk about Mountain Project. I don't know the exact year, but they probably started at least 2 decades ago.
Yeah, 2005 is when they were founded.
Okay,
yeah.
So they they have a long head start ahead of us. So right now, what we're trying to do is kind of building the foundation of the website so that user can add more climbs and routes. At the same time, we try to accelerate and do some of the stuff that currently not available on Mountain Project. For example, so at this point, the site is not particularly useful yet for just a weekend warrior. You want to go climbing in Red Rock this weekend. It's still hard to use, a bit clunky. So we are focusing on building the site to collect information, to collect climbs, and hopefully once we get more information, then we can work on a mobile app, for example.
There's essentially a deeper history here to what's going on. So I think if we can just quickly, ideally, like jump back a little bit here. So Viet, what is your like relevant experience as like how did you get into open beta? How did that come about? Like what skills do you have that's relevant in that domain? And then additionally, what is your history with Mountain Project that kind of started open beta? If you mind like jumping into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, by training, I am a software engineer, and I happen to work in what they call enterprise open source, meaning what we work on open source software, but we're able to make money. And by providing services to customer can use the software and they pay for services, they get the source code for free. And so then when I started working for that company, I met a lot of the people who actually were part of the stone master of open source, the people who worked on some of this important software that part of the Linux operating system and the whole ecosystem that pretty much run the internet now. And that's really inspiring. And it's sort of connecting the dots. Climbing is by its nature is very collaborative process. You put up this route, you cannot finish it. It's too hard. You invite someone else to do the FA, and then we share information. And when you go to a new area, you ask for more information. And it's exchanging data. And I thought that process is very collaborative. And why don't we applying some of this principle in open source and extend that to rock climbing? And and that's the two just click.
And when did you actually like start the formation of open beta? How long?
Yeah,
how long
I
ago?
started it probably 2018. I'm sorry,
Okay.
right before that, but I didn't know what to do. I knew at the time that these collective knowledge of climbing routes should be freely available. For example, if you are a coding student right now, you want to make a map of major climbing areas in the US. How do you do that? You don't have any data at the moment. And that's open beta fills in the blank. We give you that. It's just a small file that you can make a map out of. And so that's a great starting point for someone who getting into coding. So sorry, can you ask a question again? I got sidetracked.
Oh, you're good. So I mean, I guess this brings me back to one of my main questions here is I'm trying to dissect the value that open beta brings to the community. Because on a surface level, we enjoy a smooth interface, a well-presented collection of data that is crowdsourced. We freely give that to Mountain Project, and we can talk about the legalities behind like that data and where it goes and who owns it, which is interesting. But on the surface, I'd say 90%, it's just an estimation, don't see the benefit that you see in open source in terms of the data itself being accessible to people who want to use it to create maps or to use it for coding. So I'm guess what I'm trying to get you to do here is to try to present value to me, to Max, to everyday climbers who aren't coders. Like, what does open beta do for them, and why should they use your program, your website, over Mountain Project?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, when we talk about climbing, we tend to think that it's a physical activity. You have to go to a climbing area and touching the rock. But for many of us, climbing can mean exercising your intellectual, your brain muscles. And for me, it's just as rewarding, and I used to live in Portland. When it's raining so much, I couldn't get out and climb. But by making a small app, making a climbing map, that for me just as satisfying as going out to rock climb. And in order to do that, you need all of this information, and without this baseline knowledge that is accessible to everybody, it's not possible.
Yeah, so I guess like for the direction, what I'm wondering here is essentially like, in regards to this, like we're looking at a debate of like where the information is coming from, correct? So like Mountain Project is facilitated by us as a community, collaborating and providing our information there. And if I'm misspeaking here, you can correct me. So it's like we're providing our information to this website, and we're getting like a functioning and good website. But there's kind of this like dilemma of like what is being done with the information, and then also what could be done with the information. And my understanding is like your estimation essentially is like this information is provided by climbers as a community. And if it was available to the climbing community, particularly in the digital space that you're operating in, then this opens up like a massive realm of collaborative opportunity for us to use this data in a lot of really interesting ways to produce value for the community. Like that's essentially what I'm getting out of this. Does that sound correct?
Right. Yeah. So when people think of climbing information, they tend to think in a very binary way. If I use the website, I don't support guidebook authors. If I use Mountain Project, I don't support the guidebooks. It's we all can coexist. You can support open beta, providing information so that the community can freely reuse that information to do coding or for their school project. Doesn't mean that you're not supporting Mountain Project. And the data and open beta user, we can help improve the data, make it more accurate in a more digestible form, and that can be reused by Mountain Project user as well.
Okay. Max, I think that was a really great point. I think that my question here now is, has it been determined whether or not Mountain Project actually legally owns the rights to that data? I know there was a bit of a cease and desist and almost like a bit of a legal battle between you guys. What ended up happening there? Was there a verdict? Like, does Mountain Project actually own that data that we, the public, gave to them freely? Are they gatekeeping that information from people like you? Like, talk to us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm a professor. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I learned, that if you read the fine print of any crowdsourcing website, it's basically say you give that company the right to reuse your contribution. So basically, you still when you upload a photo, you still the copyright owner of that photo. You just grant them the right to use it on the website for any purpose to eternity. The same thing with your route beta.
And so does that apply even if you've removed the information? If you remove the information, do they still hold the right to use the data that you shared essentially?
Yeah, that technicality I don't know, but I know that, for example, in the EU, you have the right to ask to be forgotten, and they legally obligated to delete your account, your contribution. But I don't think we operate under that.
What I've actually read about this is if someone decides to take down their submission and Mountain Project deems it to be a useful bit of information. What apparently they've been, I'm not sure if this has been confirmed, but there have been rumors that they will repost that information under what's called an orphaned user. And apparently there's these submittals of information on Mountain Project by the user, orphaned user. And apparently they're repurposing the information, taking your name away from the data that you gave them and repurposing it under a generic title. And so, back to what you said, Viet, here, you gave them the rights to the information the second you gave it to them. And once you remove it, not only do they keep the information, but now they strip your ownership from it completely because your name is no longer tied to it anymore. But they deemed that information was valuable to the community, and so they're going to leave it on their site. It's a bit of a gray area. I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it. But I think that the question here for me is like, yes, they have rights to your data, right? Fine. You give it to them. The same with the internet. Pretty much anything you post these days, it's free for all. My question is, are you, Viet, barred from accessing the data off of Mountain Project? Like, can you not access it? Is there a gate there, a legal gate?
Me personally, or
open
in
beta?
general?
So for me, I think that open beta success relies on access to all of the data. It needs everything, right? It needs all the data. And to do that, I think that the route of expecting every single person to switch their behaviors to submit stuff to open beta moving forward is a monumental task. I mean, Mountain Project has been doing this for 2 decades, and it's a huge resource. So to me, I think that expecting or hoping that working on getting open beta to that stage is like this big, long, crazy project that would take a long time. But the shortcut to me is finding a way to somehow legalize or access the data that's already available. With tools like AI that's coming out, information is everywhere. Like, why can't we just find a way to repurpose this data to make it, open source?
Well, that's what essentially what we did 2 years ago. That's what caused the legal issue, where on the website there's a collection of data partially extracted from Mountain Project that been published. So in a sense, we freed or we liberated part of that data, the community contribution, and it's now freely available.
Now, they sent you a cease and desist, correct?
Yes.
So did anything evolve from there? Was it actually determined that you guys were not allowed to repurpose that data?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about this whole legal process. It's fascinating. A cease and desist simply means that we might not have the right to publish information, and the company that's hosting that information, they have to take it down. So in a way, to shield that company from legal liability. So that's simply what it is. So we hosted the data file on this website, and they were forced to be taken down. And there's a legal procedure that we followed, and we follow that legal procedure, and the data after 2 weeks have been restored. And ever since, it's been there.
When you say restored, do you mean restored on open beta or restored on Mountain Project? So it's still on open beta, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so hypothetically, did you challenge their cease and desist order? Like, what happened with that from like a legality standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, that's my lawyer was dealing with that. So basically, when you file a they call the DMCA takedown, then whoever hosting your content, for example, if you put someone else's video on YouTube, then the owner can file a cease and desist, and then if you don't take it down, then they follow through the DMCA process, where YouTube is legally obligated to remove your video. And then it's up to you, the burden of proof is on you to prove that the other party does not have the legal right. And that's what we did. That's what our lawyer did.
Do you feel?
And when you,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just wondering, sorry for the interruption, but do you feel that Mountain Project actually had like a legal precedent to pursue you in the way that they did? Or do you feel that that was more so intimidation to try and just get you to stop doing what you were doing? So did you actually have legal right to use the data in the manner that you used it? Like, I'm totally out of my depth here. I don't understand the legality of internet like crawling and what is available and what isn't to be used for like repurposing. So yeah, do you feel like it was like they actually thought you had done something improper, or it was more intimidation? And do you actually have the legal right to use the data in the manner in which you did?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to the legality of it, but I think it's just someone just was doing their job. Just they saw some guy putting their data online, and they just reacted to it, and I think they might have overreacted. Yeah, I mean, we can focus on talking about Mountain Project, but I think it's been in the past. I think at the end of the day, they just made up of people like ourselves. Some of them are climbers. They're just getting paid to do their work. So I think, and maybe they move on. And yeah, I've been around the tech industry long enough. I can tell you, like super well funded companies 2 decades ago, they're no longer around. So I wouldn't worry about that. What I worry about is climbers, our community. How do we look at all of these contribution, and we giving away our contribution for free, and the data is being bought and sold. How do we as a community going forward, how do we address this? I'm thinking about the other day, we can just go to the store and buy a generic puffy jacket, but we don't. We have to buy a certain brand because why we pay a lot of money for a jacket? Because we believe in the company mission. We believe that they practice fair labor law, they pay their worker well, and they protect the environment, for example. And I think by the same token, I think climber, we can look at this knowledge, the volume of climbing knowledge, how we treating them for the next generation.
So is your mission for open beta to change the behaviors of climbers to input their data to open beta instead of Mountain Project? Is that your mission?
No, I don't think we just want to create an additional outlet where people can share contribution, that they can rest assured that the contribution is remain freely available for the next generation. And we do so by following some of the great examples in the industry. We follow Wikipedia and OpenStreetMap. We follow how they license their data that protect the right of their user, to protect the community, to put the community interest first and foremost. For example, I'm not sure everyone knows that, but Wikipedia, all the information there, you can freely copy the information and you can sell it. You can make a book and sell it and make money. You just have to give proper attribution, for example.
Yeah, really interesting. I did not know that.
We're not trying to put, guidebook authors or Mountain Project or any other companies out of business. We can't. We just a nonprofit and we have no budget. We just want to preserve this information to make it freely available for everyone to use. And it's not a binary, idea. We can coexist, and other projects can coexist.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting point. And so for me, like what this makes me think of is it's essentially completely analogous to like we can extrapolate this to social media, right? We get this service for free, everybody views it for free, when in reality, our attention span is actually the commodity which is being sold, which is currently one of the most valuable things on the planet, which these companies make unbelievable amounts of money. At the same time, it's nuanced and it's complex. There are avenues in it where it's educational, it's amazing, it's inspirational, it allows people to connect. It also has a lot of mental health issues and drawbacks and associations with depression. So there's all these issues with that, but essentially it's almost like this inability for people to coalesce and work together to understand that our attention is quite literally one of the most valuable things on the planet. And how do you coordinate individuals to aim their attention in directions that make sense? And so, like in the example of open beta here, it's like if you could simply just try and provide the information for the community as a whole and not try and repurpose it as this commodity to sell for advertisement or something. There's something like more holistic, altruistic, and there's like a longevity in that people can repurpose the data in better ways, hypothetically, right? But it's like it's the common issue of like, how do you get people to work together to do that in enough of like a consistency or a group, right? Like that's a really, really complex issue. I'm wondering, like, do you have any like insight? Like, do you have any ideas to how to like try and promote more consistency to people posting to open beta?
Yeah, it's really a challenging task for us. The majority of our volunteers are very tech savvy, and we're lacking volunteers in marketing and project management, those kind of disciplines. So yeah, so if the listeners are you're a project manager at some company, we welcome your help. If you're in marketing, we'd love to talk to you. If you're an attorney, we'd love to your help drafting some of our terms and conditions that protects our users and protects the contribution. And then if you can have a longer answer, if you look back in the history of software, back in the early 2000, everyone thinks that by guarding the recipes of the software, that's how you make money. But then it turns out you don't make money just by selling Windows or the Mac operating system. You make money by providing added services, added values to your software. And so now the operating system, the software, Linux is practically free, and companies found a way to monetize the added values. And I think the same, and it takes company 2 decades to figure that out. Some of the brightest people in open source to figure that out. So yeah, so climbing the same, I see something very similar. Right now, we at like the early hours of the intersection of technology and climbing, and of course, you would have players that apply the same playbooks in business. How do we capitalize on this information? How do we make money, extract values out of this? But then I think in the next few years, they realize the information is just commodity. You need to provide something more than just the location of the climb, the grade, something more than that. I don't know the answer yet. And I think at that point, the information we're fighting now, we care so much about, is not going to be an issue. It's going to be a more interesting and more difficult problem to solve. And that's going to be for the next generation. And yeah, and by that time, hopefully we have a complete database of climbing in the world and everyone freely to use.
I think that, Max, your reference to social media was interesting. I think that I'm thinking about things in the future that would cause people to maybe shift more towards using open beta and open source software for their climbing information. And the first thing that comes to mind is, Max was talking about attention and how we're all addicted to social media. We could label ourselves as addicted to Mountain Project. We like to interact with it. It's something we like to use. But there's rumors going around that Instagram and Facebook are going to be subscription based eventually. And, so now everybody's addicted to it. Now, if you want, they came out with the verified badge. If you want to pay $15 a month, you can get a little blue tag next to your name. And then it's going to be verified plus, where, if you want extra reach on your Instagram, you can get the gold badge for $50 a month. And so now, we're the ones essentially making them who they are with the content that we're providing for them to use. And now there's rumors of them turning it back around on us and charging us, the creators, for, to use the platform in the first place. And so I think there's some analogous things here with Mountain Project in the future. It's being used by so many people. It's such a huge hub for information. I could see something like this happening where Mountain Project starts to charge a membership for use, like 20. I think it's either 27 or 29 crags out in the the EU. You have to pay it. I think it's a one-time purchase, which is nice, but you have to pay for it to get access to the information. And I see potential for Mountain Project doing that. And since they own all the data that we give them, they have every legal right to do that and say, like, well, sorry, you gave us the information, it's ours now. If you want access to it, $15, pay. And so I think that could be a moment where people are like, here's the middle finger to Mountain Project. Let's go over to open beta because it's open sourced. There's no fees. Let's rebuild this community and, as a group, somehow collectively move that data from one place to the other. And so I see that potentially being a situation where, there is a value added to the general public who might not be coders and might not understand the benefits of open source code or open source data, but respect a platform for not charging them for use and for storing their information. What have you thought about the future and kind of like events that would lead people to open beta? Like, are there other avenues that you've thought of?
Yeah. I mean, I want to clarify one key point. When people talk about open source, we use the word free a lot, but it's actually not. It's free in open source. It's the freedom to use information. It's not. You can charge people for using the data, your information. It's the freedom for everyone to do what they wish. Yeah, so I think in the perfect world, this is what I propose to Mountain Project. A lot of us are coders, we are nerds. Let us help you make the data better. You can still monetize this. Maybe I just want to make an app just for all the easy climbing 5.7 tracks in Red Rock. And there's still room for that app. And I could sell it for a small amount of money, and I could improve all the data that Mountain Project can, or any other companies can monetize. And in the end, it's a win-win for everybody. The community has access to this body of information that you can use to learn for machine learning, for example. And at the same time, other tech-savvy people can build apps and make some money. And large businesses can still have a business out of this whole community.
Do you see like a harmonious situation where what you're trying to accomplish at Open Beta and what Mountain Project has accomplished and is doing? Do you see a chance for you guys to kind of merge and become the best versions of both of yourselves? Like, where, yes, Mountain Project owns the data, but people can lease the data, or people with an idea can come to them and say, hey, if you give me access to this data, I've got this idea that could benefit your site because I feel like it's missing XYZ. Like, if all the data has to live on Mountain Project, do you feel like they are open to that kind of process? Would that solve kind of what Open Beta is trying to solve, or is it still a problem because Mountain Project essentially owns the data and is gatekeeping it?
Yeah, I think I want to clarify. They do not own the data from what I understand. We just give them the license to use it. That's all. They don't technically own it. Yeah, my door is open. We love to collaborate with them. I'm happy to do that. and under one condition, that the community contribution should be available for the community to use, whether for a school project or someone else to monetize on
So
the
I'm curious, real
information.
quick, if they don't own the data, then why can't you use it?
Yeah. So, for example, the route name, the location, Mount Wilson in Red Rock, Vegas. Nobody. It's a factual information. Nobody can copyright that information, right? But the description, for example, someone writes a description how this climb is really hard.
It's opinion based. It's
that's
a form of
considered
art. Okay.
a creative expression. So that is copyrighted by the author, the original author.
Okay.
Right. I have to get permission.
Permission from the poster on Mountain Project,
right,
to be able
right.
to copy that description onto open beta.
Right.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
But the
to me.
general information, from what I know, the climb name, location, those are factual, and it's fair game.
Okay, but not the pictures and the descriptions that people submit. Okay,
right.
Interesting. And since it is crowdsourced and Mountain Project doesn't have the data itself, it's like it would be impossible to go around and ask every single submittal to ask if you could use their data. And if Mountain Project doesn't own it, then they can't license it to you either, correct?
Right.
Wow. Right. Okay. So it's kind of just like trapped
actually
there.
Yeah, I take it back. I think a lawyer can correct me here, but the fine print does say you grant them you relicense your data, your information to them. I think they're free to like a blank check.
But they have no interest in licensing their data to you because they see you as a competitor.
I mean, if I run a business, I don't want my competitors to have that information.
Yeah, I see that. Interesting. It's an interesting space to be in. Yeah.
I mean,
I have no dog in this fight. It's a labor of love project. But it's how. I feel like I'm very fortunate to wake up and say, "Hey, what am I going to do today? I'm going to go climbing, or I'm going to write some code on a climbing website." And,
No, I think there's a comment here in the article where it says, "Forever a user agrees. Use your content in a number of different ways, including copying it, publicity performing or displaying it, reformatting it, modifying it, translating it, incorporating it into advertisements and other works, creating derivative works from it, promoting it, distributing it as such." And it keeps going. So there's obviously like a lot of leeway they have of what they can do with that information, right? So there's a lot going on there to repurpose
pretty much
it.
a blank check.
Exactly. It's pretty much a blank check to just do what you want with your data. And I mean, this article, so it does state like forever. So I don't really know what that means if you can get rid of your data, but it's a much broader, like interesting discussion, I think. So I guess like an interesting question I'd have for you here, Viet, is if you just had a blank check to just do whatever you want in a hypothetical, we're theorizing here, situation for open beta, what would that look like? And then the other side to that coin is, in a more realistic way, how could you actually implement some of those ideas, and what does that look like?
Yeah. If I have a blank check, good question. I guess I would quit my job and work on open beta full time. I think, seriously, I would hire, additional people with business skills, someone in project management, someone in marketing. I would hire a lot of writers and to create content for us. So as a small, in a way, we like a small startup. You have to niche uh, down. You have to find your niche and just singularly focus on that one feature. Um, Even companies like Apple, Steve Jobs have to cut so many projects just to work on the iPhone, just one thing, before they expand it again to do many other things. So so for example, earlier this year, we added a feature to the site where when you search for a climbing area, you will see the local climbing organization listed under. If you go to Red Rock, you will see Southern California Climbing Coalition. If you go to Boulder, you see the Boulder Climbers Coalition, BCC. I feel like it's something no one else has done, so we try to do something other people are not doing. And another project I wish I have funding for this is we like to catalog climbs by first ascensionist. To me, I love the history of climbing, and for example, I love classical music. I can go to Spotify or Wikipedia and click on Mozart, for example. I can see all of his work. You can look up John Lennon. You can see all the songs he's done. I like to do that. Be able to do that. Just pick your favorites, climbers. Leighton Core. Like all his route. Lynn Hill. All of her first ascent. We kind of be able to do that right now with open beta, but it's not quite ready. We hope to. The reason being that I can get a little technical here. The FA information is not something people care about so much. So for a mountain project or in our database, it's just a long text, Kyle, Max, 2014.
Like a CSV file or something.
Right now, it's just like a string, like someone type it in like a string. Mm-hmm. And we like to be able to process that and make it more structural. So you'd have an individual name associating with a climb. And that would open up so much possibility. You can do research and you can catalog climbs and you see there's no money. I think it's no compelling reason for a commercial entity to do this kind of work, but I think it's so beneficial to the community.
Yeah, I mean, shamelessly for myself and my own interests, I'm sure I could find this information through researching a lot more, but I just have this really interesting fascination with the history of the 8,000 meter peaks and the first ascents on them, and particularly the first kind of alpine style ascents on them. But it's harder to kind of coalesce the information. You need this person's autobiography and this, and you search the web, read Reinhold Messner's book. Like it's kind of all over the place. Whereas like if I could look at like an integrated map and you could see like, oh, here's like, G1, G2, here's K2. And like, you can look at the like first ascensionists of the routes and stuff. That'd be like all integrated into one place simply. That would be really, really cool. Yeah, that'd be really amazing. Yeah.
It seems to me like Mountain Project just needs to hire you and a bunch of coders to implement a bunch of sick features that Mountain Project is missing.
It's very expensive to run a software team, so I don't think they have to charge.
They'll have to charge us the subscription to get you guys in a team. Okay.
Okay, so I've got one last question here on these, which I'm kind of interested in, and maybe it's out of your depth. It's certainly out of mine. But there's a lot of changes coming in the technological industry, and particularly talking about like artificial intelligence. Obviously, we're not at AGI, but we're in these language processing models that are allowing people to do a lot more. How do you like foresee your role with open beta and these advancements in language processing models? Like, how is that going to affect you and your goal here? Like, do you foresee that as a positive influence? Do you like how do you perceive that?
Yeah, I think it's a huge it's a big. We're looking forward to be able to apply that in an open beta. For example, we're hoping to add a commenting section to all the climbs, and you can feed that into ChatGPT, and then you can train it and then it can summarize a climb for you. And you can train the model so that because right now ChatGPT is really good at understanding regular English. It can construct sentences, but it doesn't know your particular domain. So you can train it. In climbing, we have all these jargons we use. It's run out, it's sloper. Um, um, like an off whip. So you can feed all of those keywords into to ChatGPT, and then it will give you a better summary of the climb. That is one option. Or you can actually what you can do it right now with the data that we have. You don't have to use ChatGPT. You can if you want. You can give it all the descriptions that people have written for our climbs, and you can tell it to give you a sentiment. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? It's sexist? It's all kind of stuff. Interesting thing you can do with the data.
Do you foresee this as a tool for maybe, like, for example, like in this, like, I mean, it's probably the wrong terminology, but well, get it, like David and Goliath, it's like the little guy versus the giant kind of thing, Mountain Project being the giant. Like, do you foresee these tools as a way for individuals who, you are a startup, or you are a not-for-profit, and maybe this is in the future going to be a way for people to be competing with that? Because my understanding is, like, these are going to be like the new coders. Like, you're obviously way more versed in this, but like what is the need for a coder in 10 years at the way these things are going? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's amazing. I haven't used it, but people I know using AI to assist them with coding, and they blown away how good it is. Which something machine is really good at. It can look at million lines of code.
Language.
Yeah, exactly. And but you can see now, for example, on Amazon, if you look at a product, it's instead of scrolling through 100 comments, feedback people have left for the product, right now they use ChatGPT or something similar to summarize this for you. And you have to, and I think you can apply that to climbing easily.
What if you just scanned the internet with Bard and ChatGPT and had it aggregate all the data that's available publicly, and then re-paraphrase it into the specific climbs that exist on open beta and start from scratch there as a foundation?
Oh my God, this is exactly as I had in mind the other day. But again, we have so many, we're such a we just a small nonprofit, so we have to pick out a battle, and right now is have to do something really boring, which is making the website easier for someone to input a climb. And
for sure, I will say that as a user, I'd say if your goal is to get people to start interacting with the site more, user experience is probably the number one thing to focus on. If it's if unfortunately with these days, we don't have attention spans, and our computers, especially these new Mac softwares, it's like everything's lightning fast. It's everything just is. There's no waiting period anymore, and so we really notice when a page takes too long to load, or it's not intuitive, and so when we lose the attention span for it too fast, and so you're really up against it in terms of developing something that has a very pristine and inviting user experience. I'd say that's probably the biggest crux in the beginning, at least for my eyes, for what you got.
You're right.
Awesome. Well, I think we've talked a lot about open beta. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about yourself and who you are as a climber really quick before we close this off, unless you have anything else about open beta you feel like we missed.
No, I think you cover all bases.
Okay, awesome. So for yourself, how long you been climbing?
For about 12 years.
Okay. Were you like mostly in the United States? Where did you find climbing? I'm just curious as to kind of, round us out a little bit. What do you like to climb? Where's your expertise?
Yeah, I learned to climb in New York. Actually, I used to live in New York City, and then I learned to climb. Someone took me to the Gunks in upstate New York, and it's an awesome top roping area. And I remember the first day we climbed, and I just fell in love with climbing. and I immediately I moved west to Portland, and I started climbing ever since. I climb mostly trad, and although the last 4 years I was living in Spain, so all my climbing was sport climbing.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah, super, super cool. I guess like the flexibility of your job and everything, like that's got to be something really, really interesting to do, right? I'm assuming, right? You can move around, you can go explore new places. Yeah, that's really awesome. And so now you're in Vegas climbing in Red Rocks, right?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I used to come, so I came to Red Rocks. Actually, Red Rock was my first climbing trip ever. I remember coming here, first climb in Panties Wall, I think, yeah. And in the first pull out, where all this easy sport climbing, for the listener who don't know, it's the first crag when you enter the park. It's all 5'8", 5'7". And then looking at the other side of the canyon, seeing all these like awesome canyons, and I quickly found out you have to be able to lead trad to go there. And that was so inspiring. I told myself, I want to learn trad, and I immediately bought a rack. And after that trip, and I've been coming back since every year.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
I saw that you were in Black Velvet Canyon. Did you get on Adventure Punks?
No, we did. Yeah, I did Dream of Wild Turkey.
Oh, cool.
And then
nice.
and then Adventure Punk is in Pine Creek. Yeah, I did that the other day.
Okay.
Yeah, super. Nice. Yeah, it's one of the best climb I've done so far this season. Yeah,
very cool. What's on the horizon? You got like a big checkbox before you leave for the season?
I like to climb this climb called the Warrior. It's like a 5 or 6 pitch, and it's a long approach, right? And I have a long history with that climb. I visited years ago. I found a partner. We did some practice run, and then the day we were supposed to climb it, he got really sick, so we didn't do it. And then I met another climber the next following season, and we hiked all the way to the base, and she also got really ill, and we have to bail. So hopefully third time is a charm.
Yeah, good luck on that thing, man. That thing is a beast. I was Max. That was the climb I did with Joey.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, no, that's like a bit of a. There's an off width. It's like a number 6 in there and stuff.
Yeah,
too,
no, it's
right?
like a run out chimney in the beginning, and then it's like this really delicate 10B corner, and then you get into the money where you're just like 11A 10D stem corner crack. It's a grovel, man. It's quite a climb. I never made it to the top, but I heard it's great.
Yeah,
so I hope you can make it up there.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I mean, we really appreciate you coming on the show. This is like quite a unique discussion for us as well, too. Like talking about, like open source data and the legality of things. It's really cool. I think the project that you're doing is really, really interesting. And, I wish you and the individuals you're working with nothing but the best. And yeah, man, stay in contact, and thanks again for coming on the show and having a conversation with us and, explaining what's going on in your point of view.
Yeah, before I forget, you guys should sign up for an account and put the link to your podcast on your profile, because everyone is a content creator these days, and it's really hard to get links and traffic to your site. Just open beta is one way to make yourself known in this niche of the climbing community.
Okay, you got it, man. Yeah, I created an account today.
Me too. Yeah, I'm just uploading my 3 pictures right now for like the account, which I actually kind of like that you have to like upload pictures and stuff. Yeah, it's cool.
But yeah, I'm in progress. It's huge change that I'm making right now to make the editing so much easier. Right now it's a bit clunky to edit and add routes, but promise in a couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good. I'll hold you to it.